They mocked her plea for help until a silent cowboy stepped in and changed everything. The twin sons of Caldera. 9 hung low in the sky, painting the dusty plains with orange and purple streaks. The wind tarried fine, silver dust that sparkled like tiny stars, even during the day. At the edge of the landing platform, Elias Crow stood with his wide-brimmed hat pulled low, scanning the horizon. His boots sank slightly into the powdery dust, the quiet crunch beneath his feet the only sound aside from the soft hum of the landing pads. Elias was a man of few words, the kind who let the wind and the land speak for him. His ranch was one of the few remaining homesteads on this remote moon, a harsh, silent world where survival depended on skill, patience, and a little bit of luck. He had agreed to a mail-order marriage months ago, more out of necessity than desire. A ranch hand needs someone he can trust, someone who can handle the routines of feeding the star cattle and maintaining the automated fences. But as he waited, Elias felt a flutter of curiosity. The shuttle landed with a soft hiss, kicking up clouds of metallic dust. The door opened, and out stepped a woman in a modest dress. She moved carefully, each step measured, as if the ground itself might betray her. Her eyes, dark and wary, scanned the platform, lingering on Elias for just a moment before moving away. Her hair was pulled back simply, and she carried a small bag. Something about her seemed fragile, but Elias noticed the steadiness in her posture. There was a strength behind her caution, even if she tried to hide it. "Are you Maravale?" Elias asked, stepping forward. His voice was calm, not demanding, just enough to reach her ears. She nodded slightly, her hands gripping the strap of her bag. "Yes," she replied softly. Her voice was quiet but clear. Elias extended a hand, but she hesitated, then gave a small nod and allowed him to help her down from the shuttle ramp. As she touched the dust, her boots sank slightly and she adjusted her dress. That's when Elias noticed it. Faint discolorations beneath the fabric of her sleeves. Something almost imperceptible, a pattern of shadows, like the memory of pain she had tried to hide. He said nothing, just observed. Years on Caldera, 9 had taught him that trust came slowly, and questions asked too soon could push a person away. Instead, he led her toward the small rover he kept for trips across the plains. "This way," he said, his hand resting lightly on the vehicle. Mara followed, keeping a careful distance. Her eyes kept darting to the horizon, where the last rays of the suns met the jagged line of distant mountains. "First time on Caldera?" 9, Elias asked, starting the rover. "Yes," she replied. Her voice had a note of tension, and Elias caught the faint tremor in her hand as she held her bag. "It's different than I imagined." He nodded, keeping his eyes on the rough trail ahead. "It's quiet, and it's harsh, but it's honest." Mara's eyes softened slightly. She glanced at the sprawling ranch below the cliffs, at the low-hanging automated fences and the large metallic barns. "It's big," she whispered. "Big enough to get lost," Elias said, a hint of a smile crossing his face. "But if you stick with me, you won't." She allowed herself a small smile in return. It was brief, like the flicker of a star in the dawn sky, but Elias noticed. The rover rolled over the silver dust, kicking up small clouds. The wind carried a strange scent, a mix of ozone and dry soil. Mara kept her eyes forward, hands folded neatly in her lap, but Elias could feel the tension radiating from her. His hearing implants picked up the slight unevenness in her breathing, subtle enough that most people would miss it. "You don't have to talk about it," he said softly, almost to himself. "Not yet." Mara's gaze flicked toward him, a shadow of something unspoken passing over her features. She nodded slightly. The rover came to a stop at the ranch's main gate. The buildings were simple but sturdy, designed to withstand the dust storms and occasional meteor showers. Star cattle grazed calmly in the large pens, their bioluminescent markings glowing faintly as the sun set. Elias parked and helped Mara out. "Your room's the one at the end of the hall," he said. "I'll show you the rest of the ranch tomorrow. For now, just settle in." Mara nodded again, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Thank you," she said softly. She looked at the ranch, at the fences, at the cattle, and something in her posture relaxed ever so slightly. As Elias turned to leave, he noticed her sleeve shift. A faint shadow of a mark caught the light for a moment before she adjusted it back into place. His lips pressed together, and for the first time in months, he felt a quiet worry that had nothing to do with the land or the cattle. That night, the wind howled across the plains. The twin moons rose, casting a soft glow over the ranch.
In her room, Mara unpacked her bag carefully. She touched the folds of her dress where the shadows lay, tracing them lightly with her fingertips.
They were not ordinary bruises. Elias could sense that even from a distance, but marks left by something else, something mechanical and unkind. She pressed a hand to her chest and took a deep breath, reminding herself that she was free now. Elias walked past her window on his way to the barn. The wind made the metal of the fences sing. He paused, feeling the quiet weight of the ranch around him. The hum of the automated systems, the soft glow of the cattle pens, the emptiness of the horizon. And yet, something unsettled him. Not the land, not the moons, but Mara. He didn't know her story yet, but he could feel the echo of her fear. He decided not to ask questions tonight. He knew trust could not be forced, and fear could not be banished by words. Still, he whispered softly into the night air, more to himself than anyone else. What kind of world makes someone arrive this afraid? The next morning the suns rose again, brushing the sky with pink and gold. Mara stepped outside, careful at first, letting her boots sink into the dust. She watched the cattle, touched the fences, and for the first time allowed herself to feel a small spark of possibility. Elias was already in the barn preparing the feeding schedules. He glanced at her, nodded, and said, "Ready to start?" Mara nodded, her shoulders a little straighter. She felt the wind on her face, felt the dust beneath her boots, and thought, maybe for the first time in a long while, that she could belong somewhere. Elias watched her quietly, noting how she moved, how her eyes lingered on the horizon, how she adjusted her dress whenever the faint shadows of the mark showed. He didn't ask. Not yet. Because some truths needed time. And on Caldera, 9, time moved differently, slower, harsher, but honest. And somewhere beneath the twin moons, in the quiet of the starlit plains, a story was beginning. A story of trust, of secrets, and of two people finding a fragile connection in the middle of a harsh silver world. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly over Caldera, 9, spilling pale light across the silver plains. The ranch hummed to life as automated gates opened and feeders rumbled. Elias moved with calm precision, checking sensors and water systems, while Mara followed quietly behind, her hands folded in front of her. Elias had instructed her to start with the smaller tasks, feeding the star calves, checking the fences, and learning the patterns of the land. She moved carefully at first, touching the machinery lightly, afraid she might break something. Her eyes were wide with wonder as the automated feeders descended from their rails, dispensing glowing nutrient pellets into the pens. "You don't have to be afraid of it," Elias said gently. "These machines only do what we tell them. They won't hurt you." Mara nodded, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. She appreciated his calm voice, steady and patient. There was no rush here, no loud voices or shouting, just the quiet rhythm of the ranch and a man who seemed to understand silence as well as words. As the day went on, Mara began to relax slightly. She discovered small joys, watching the star calves nuzzle each other, hearing the soft hum of the automated fences, and feeling the wind sweep across the plains. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt a little like she belonged somewhere. Elias noticed her careful movements, the way she avoided letting anyone or anything touch her unnecessarily. And then he saw it again, the faint shadows beneath her sleeves, dancing in the light. This time, he didn't just notice them, he sensed them. They were not ordinary bruises. There was a strange energy to them, almost like faint echoes of some machine or device. He said nothing aloud. Instead, he watched quietly, noting how she flinched whenever a breeze made her sleeve shift. By afternoon, Mara had learned the names of the machines, the paths the cattle liked to follow, and the rhythm of Elias's work. She even began to hum softly while she worked, a low tune that blended with the hum of the ranch. Elias paused at the barn door and watched her for a moment. There was something gentle in the way she moved, careful but sure. "You're learning fast," he said. She smiled faintly. "I want to do it right," she said. Her voice had a weight to it, something measured and careful, as if she was used to thinking through every word and action. Elias nodded. "Good. This land can teach you patience if you let it." They continued working side by side, their movements almost synchronized. Elias found himself stealing glances at her occasionally, noticing the subtle ways she adjusted her sleeves, the way her eyes flicked toward the horizon whenever she thought he wasn't looking. By the time the suns began to set, painting the sky with orange and violet streaks, Elias suggested a break. They sat on the porch, watching the star calves wander among the pens, their faint bioluminescent markings glowing in the dim light. "You like it here?" Elias asked, breaking the silence. Mara hesitated, then nodded. different, peaceful, in a way I haven't known in a long time. Elias noticed the slight tension in her voice, the way she didn't fully relax even when speaking. "You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to," he said quietly. "Not yet." She met his gaze briefly, then looked away, toward the mountains on the horizon. "Some things," she began, her voice trailing off. Then she shook her head and gave a small laugh. "Never mind." Elias didn't push. He had learned a long time ago that patience was often the best way to earn trust. The night on Caldera, 9 was unlike any other. The twin moons cast pale silver light over the plains, and the wind carried the faint scent of ozone and dry dust. Inside the small kitchen, Mara prepared a simple meal, moving with quiet care. The soft clinking of utensils and the faint hum of the refrigerator-like device were the only sounds, aside from the wind outside. Elias joined her, carrying a small tray of nutrient drinks for the meal. He set them down gently. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice low. Mara looked up at him, her dark eyes reflecting the light of the moons. She wanted to trust him, to tell him everything she had gone through, but she couldn't yet. The marks on her arms weren't just scars. They were reminders of a life she had escaped. To speak them aloud felt dangerous, even here on this distant moon. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, "Thank you." After the meal, they moved outside to check on the star cattle. The soft glow of their markings illuminated the pens, giving the impression of floating constellations. Mara watched them quietly, her hands folded in front of her, but this time without the tension she had shown before. Elias noticed the change, subtle as it was. "Do you ever miss the world you left?" Elias asked gently, after a long pause. Mara's lips pressed together. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not in the way you might think. I don't miss the people, I just miss feeling safe in my own skin, feeling like no one was watching every move I made." Elias nodded, understanding more than she realized. He could sense the weight of her past, even without knowing the details. And he understood why she flinched at certain movements, why she adjusted her sleeves so often, why her eyes constantly scanned the horizon. The wind picked up suddenly, carrying a faint metallic hum from the distant cliffs. Mara tensed instinctively. Elias noticed immediately. "The wind's nothing to fear," he said calmly. "Just the cliffs. That's all." She exhaled slowly, releasing the tension in her shoulders. Elias didn't press, but he made a mental note to keep an eye on her. There was more to her than she let on, and he didn't need words to see it. As the night deepened, they returned to the ranch house. Mara moved to her room, pausing at the doorway. She glanced back at Elias, her expression a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "Good night," she said softly. "Good night," he replied. For the first time since arriving, Mara allowed herself to lie down without constant vigilance. She stared at the ceiling, thinking of the stars and the twin moons outside her window. She thought of the dust, the wind, and the quiet hum of the ranch, and for the first time in a long while she felt something she hadn't felt in years, a small, fragile sense of hope. Elias, meanwhile, walked the perimeter of the ranch, his boots crunching in the silver dust. He paused, looking at the mountains on the horizon, the glow of the automated fences, and the gentle hum of the star cattle. And then, almost to himself, he whispered again, "Who hurt you?" The question hung in the cold night air, unanswered but not forgotten. It was not a demand. It was a promise, one that Mara could sense, even in her cautious silence. Somewhere deep in her chest, a quiet warmth stirred. She didn't know she could trust him yet, but for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt that trust might be possible. And in the starlit ranch on Caldera, 9, under the twin moons and the soft glow of the star cattle, a connection began to form. A connection built not on words, but on patience, respect, and the quiet promise of understanding. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring more lessons, more work, and more chances to trust or retreat. But tonight, for the first time, Mara let herself feel a little like she belonged. Elias watched her from the doorway, quiet and steady, knowing that the journey was just beginning. And the ranch, silent under the moon, seemed to whisper back, "This is only the start." The twin suns rose slowly over Caldera, 9, spilling their pale light across the silver dust of the plains. Elias was already outside, checking the fences, when Mara emerged from the ranch house. Her sleeves were rolled down today, but she kept her hands close to her sides, as if hiding something beneath the fabric. Elias noticed the slight stiffness in her movements. "Good morning," he said quietly, offering a nod. Mara nodded in return. She avoided eye contact at first, glancing toward the distant mountains instead. The wind carried a faint metallic tang today, and it made her uneasy. She had been here barely a week, but already the calm of the ranch felt almost too safe. Elias handed her a small data pad. "We'll start by checking the feed schedules and the sensor readings. Then we'll see if any of the cattle are behaving differently." Mara took the pad carefully, her fingers brushing over the smooth surface. As she examined the numbers, she noticed minor fluctuations in the energy readings from the automated feeders. The machines were running perfectly, but her instincts, honed from years of careful observation, told her to double-check everything. "You notice something?" Elias asked, his tone curious but gentle. Mara hesitated. "There's a tiny fluctuation in the feeder sensors. It's nothing serious, but it might need a small adjustment." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Good eye. Let's fix it together." They moved toward the main barn, working side by side. Mara adjusted circuits and energy conduits with careful hands, her movements precise and confident. Elias watched her, impressed. She was more capable than he had expected. Yet there was a shadow behind her eyes, a trace of caution that never completely faded. After the adjustments, they stepped outside into the warm sunlight. Mara paused and glanced at the horizon, her gaze fixed on the distant cliffs. The wind stirred her hair, and for a moment she looked almost as fragile as she had the day she arrived. Elias noticed it and asked softly, "Do you want to talk about it?" Mara stiffened slightly. She had been running from this part of her life for so long that speaking about it felt dangerous, and yet she could feel the quiet patience in Elias's tone. It was not judgment, not pressure, just understanding. She began, then stopped. She swallowed and finally whispered, "I didn't come here just to start over. I ran from something. Something that wanted to control me." Elias's brow furrowed slightly, but he said nothing, giving her the space to continue. "My last home," she said slowly, "was a colony run by a corporation that experimented on people. They used technology to monitor, to manipulate, even control thoughts and emotions." She hesitated. "I had marks, faint ones. They're under my skin, left by neural feedback devices. They hurt, in ways people can't see. And when I escaped, I didn't know if they could track me across space." Elias's expression softened. "That explains the marks," he said gently. "You're safe here. This land, this ranch, it's off the grids they monitor. You don't have to fear them here." Mara exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift slightly from her shoulders. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this quiet ranch on a distant moon could really be a refuge. But old fears die slowly, and the memory of control lingered like a shadow. The day passed quietly, with Elias teaching Mara how to maintain the energy fences, repair minor mechanical faults, and tend to the glowing star calves. Mara worked with surprising skill, her hands moving deftly over circuits and panels, her mind alert to even the smallest irregularities. Elias could see she was not just a survivor. She was clever, resourceful, and determined. As evening fell, the twin moons rose again, casting a silvery glow over the plains. Mara and Elias were repairing a section of the fence when a faint hum echoed across the land. Elias stopped mid-motion, his ears catching a subtle vibration in the air. "Do you hear that?" he asked quietly. Mara froze. The sound was almost imperceptible, a distant vibration that seemed to come from the cliffs beyond the plains. Her heart quickened. She had heard similar hums before, technology trying to locate her. But this was far enough away to be harmless for now. "Just the cliffs," Elias said, reading her tension. "Wind can make them sing sometimes, but stay close." Mara nodded, grateful for his calm presence. She wanted to run, to hide, but something in the way Elias moved, steady and unshaken, made her stay. After finishing the repairs, they walked back to the ranch house. The night was still and quiet, except for the soft hum of automated systems and the gentle glow of the star cattle. Mara paused outside the door, glancing back at the plains. For the first time, she felt something like hope, though it was fragile, like a candle in a dusty wind. Inside, Elias poured them both a warm nutrient drink. Mara held hers carefully, staring into the pale liquid as if it could make the past vanish. "I don't know if I can ever feel completely safe," she admitted quietly. Elias set his drink down. "You don't have to feel safe all at once. Just feel what you can, step by step." She looked at him, seeing the patience and care in his eyes. For the first time, she realized she didn't have to carry her fears alone. Suddenly, the small communication panel on the wall beeped softly. Mara jumped slightly, glancing at it. Elias moved to check, but paused when he saw her reaction. "They might be looking for me," she whispered, a flicker of old fear passing over her face. Elias frowned. "Who?" "The corporation," Mara admitted. "They track people like me. If they find me, I can't hide easily. That's why I ran." Elias considered this carefully. The ranch was hidden from most surveillance systems, but the thought of someone coming after her unsettled him. Yet he refused to show fear. "We'll make sure they don't find you," he said firmly. "This land is ours. You're safe here, Mara. I promise." Mara looked at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. She wanted to believe him. And somewhere deep inside, she did. The night grew colder, and the twin moons climbed higher in the sky. Mara lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The quiet hum of the ranch and the soft glow of the plains outside were soothing, but her mind kept drifting back to the faint hum from the cliffs. She wondered if it was a warning, a sign that her past could still catch up with her. But then she remembered Elias's words, his steady presence, and the small sense of hope she had felt earlier. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond fear, a life where she could belong, where she could work and laugh and feel safe. Elias, meanwhile, sat outside on the porch watching the plains. He could feel the subtle vibrations in the ground and in the air, the distant hum from the cliffs. Something was coming, he realized. Something they would have to face together. But he also knew that Mara was stronger than she appeared, and that together they could meet whatever challenge lay ahead. As the twin moons bathed the ranch in soft light, a quiet understanding passed between them, unspoken but powerful. Mara had a past that followed her, but she was not alone anymore. And Elias, who had lived his life quietly on this harsh moon, realized that protecting her was not just a duty, it was a choice he made willingly. The night stretched on, silent except for the hum of machinery and the whisper of wind across the plains. Mara drifted into sleep, still tense but calmer than before. Elias remained on the porch, vigilant, yet at peace, knowing that for now, she was safe. And somewhere beyond the cliffs, a faint shimmer of energy pulsed in the dark, a reminder that the past could never be fully escaped. Yet on the quiet ranch under the twin moons, two lives began to intertwine, bound by trust, patience, and the promise of a freer future. Tomorrow, they would face more challenges, more questions, more whispers of the past. But tonight, under the starlit plains of Caldera, Mara and Elias found something precious, a fragile connection, and a chance to begin again. The sons of Caldera... 9 began their slow rise over the silver plains, brushing the horizon with pale gold and pink. The ranch stirred quietly to life. The soft hum of the automated feeders, the distant chatter of star calves, and the wind singing through the fences. Mara stepped outside, her sleeves rolled neatly down, covering the faint shadows of her past that still lingered beneath her skin. She moved more freely today, her steps lighter than before. The quiet of the ranch felt almost sacred, a place where she could breathe without looking over her shoulder. Elias was already checking the fences when he spotted her. His expression softened as he noticed her calm demeanor. "Morning," he said, nodding in greeting. "Morning," Mara replied, a small smile lifting her lips. She felt a spark of courage today, a quiet determination she hadn't felt in years. After breakfast, they worked side by side. Mara tended the star calves, adjusting feeding schedules and checking circuits, while Elias repaired a minor fault in the automated fence. The rhythm of work, steady and honest, grounded them both. "You've learned a lot in just a few days," Elias said as he wiped his hands on a cloth. Mara paused, looking at the glowing calves. "I want to be useful. I want to know I belong somewhere." "You do," Elias said firmly. "This land, this ranch, it's ours now. You belong here, Mara." Her eyes met his, and for the first time she didn't look away. There was trust there. Fragile, and in that trust she felt a warmth she hadn't known she could feel again. Later, Mara moved to check the distant sensor towers, making her way across the plains in the rover. Elias followed at a slow pace, keeping watch. As she adjusted the energy relays on the towers, she noticed something unusual. A faint signal pulse, rhythmic and precise. She froze, recognizing it immediately. "They found me," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. Elias looked at her, calm but alert. "Not yet," he said. "We'll handle it." "Show me." Mara guided him through the relay adjustments, explaining the faint energy signature that indicated tracking attempts from her past life. Elias listened carefully, nodding as he took in her words. "They can try to trace me," Mara continued, "but they can't reach this ranch. The energy shielding here blocks most signals, and the cliffs create natural interference." Elias studied her, impressed. "You've thought this through." Mara shook her head. Not enough, but I've run far, and I've learned to hide. I want to stop running. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then don't run. Not here. Not anymore. Together they adjusted the relay system to amplify the interference, masking the ranch from external signals. Mara's hands trembled slightly as she worked, but Elias stayed close, offering quiet guidance. When the last adjustment clicked into place, the faint pulse disappeared. Mara exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. No tracking signals, no hidden eyes watching her, no past clawing at her life, just the quiet plains, the soft glow of the star cattle, and the safety of the ranch. That evening, as the twin moons rose, Mara sat on the porch, her feet dangling above the silver dust. Elias joined her, carrying 2 warm nutrient drinks. They watched the soft glow of the cattle and the faint shimmer of the automated fences. "You did it," Elias said quietly, handing her a drink. "You made sure they couldn't find you." Mara smiled faintly, taking a sip. "I didn't do it alone. You helped me." He shrugged, but there was a small warmth in his eyes. "We help each other. That's what partners do." She leaned back, letting the wind play through her hair. "I never thought I could feel this, safe." "Not really." "You can," Elias said softly, "and you'll keep feeling it. We'll make sure of it." The night was quiet, broken only by the soft hum of the ranch and the faint whisper of wind across the plains. Mara reflected on her past, the colonies she had fled, the control devices, the constant fear, but none of it touched her here. This ranch, this land, Elias's quiet strength, they had given her a chance to start over. Elias, meanwhile, watched the horizon. He knew the corporation that Mara had escaped from might still exist elsewhere in the galaxy. But here, on this distant moon, their reach was limited. And he had made a choice to protect this land and the woman who had become part of it. Days passed and the bond between Mara and Elias grew. She learned the rhythms of the ranch more deeply, finding joy in small victories, a fence repaired without error, a star calf responding to a new feeding routine, or a sunset that painted the plains in colors she had never imagined. Elias noticed how her laughter grew easier, how her steps became lighter, and Mara noticed the quiet patience in him, the way he watched the land with respect, how he gave her space but offered support whenever she faltered. One afternoon, Mara stood at the edge of the plains, looking toward the cliffs. The wind stirred the dust, and she felt the familiar thrill of freedom, the knowledge that her past could no longer touch her. "I think I'm ready," she said softly, turning to Elias. "For what?" he asked, curious. "Really live. Here. With you. On this ranch." Elias felt a warmth spread across his chest. "Then that's what we'll do." Together they walked back to the ranch, side by side. Mara's hand brushed against Elias's briefly, a simple gesture full of meaning. No words were needed. Trust, understanding, and a shared past of challenges had built a bridge between them, unspoken but strong. That night, under the twin moons, Mara and Elias walked among the star cattle. The gentle glow of the calves illuminated their path. Mara paused, touching the soft dust beneath her boots. For the first time she felt a sense of permanence, of belonging. Elias watched her closely. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "This ranch, these plains, me. We're all here for you." Mara smiled, a full, unguarded smile. "I know," she said, and for the first time she truly believed it. The following days brought a new rhythm to their lives. The ranch became a refuge not only for Mara but for others who had escaped harsh colonies or oppressive systems. Slowly, word spread among travelers and settlers that the ranch on Caldera, and each person who arrived added to the quiet community of resilience and hope. Mara and Elias worked side by side, building fences, repairing circuits, tending to the glowing calves, and sharing quiet evenings under the twin moons. Each day, Mara felt the shadows under her skin fade, not completely, but enough that she no longer feared them. One evening, as they watched the sun set, painting the plains with brilliant streaks of orange and purple, Mara looked at Elias. "I think I'm finally home," she said. Elias nodded, feeling the same warmth. "Home," he repeated. "A place worth protecting and people worth trusting." And for the first time in years, Mara let herself believe that her past no longer defined her. The ranch, the plains, and the twin moons of Caldera. 9 offered more than survival. They offered freedom, friendship, and the quiet beginnings of love. As the night deepened, they walked back to the ranch house, hand in hand. The soft glow of the star cattle followed them, illuminating their path. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the cliffs and the shimmering plains, the faint shadows of the past remained. But they no longer had power over Mara. Together they had built something stronger than fear, stronger than isolation. They had built a new frontier, one where trust, patience, and courage could flourish. And under the twin moons of Caldera, Mara and Elias stepped into that future side by side, ready to face whatever came next, together,